everyone. Welcome to the PilsConnect YouTube channel. Today we are kicking off a new series talking about pharmacy residency applications and how to prepare for the upcoming season. In this series, we're going to be talking about a couple different topics like ASHP Midyear, as well as ranking, lots of really good information with my two colleagues here. A quick introduction for myself. My name is Marissa. I am the head of Pils Content Communications, and I also am a wellness pharmacist. And today I'll be talking with Maiah and Chandler. Maiah, do you want to go ahead and start off with introductions?
Sure. So my name is Maiah Hardin. I'm currently a PGY2 ambulatory care pharmacy resident at the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston, Texas. And I also serve as the director of the Clinical Pils Protege program.
And Chandler, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you, Marissa, and thank you, Maiah. So happy to be here. I am Chandler Schexnayder. I am currently the head of community at Pharmacy Initiative Leader, so working with Marissa and Maiah very closely. And I'm also the PGY1 Residency Program Director at Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center in Houston, Texas, where Maiah is currently, and had the opportunity to be the director for Maiah last year. So once again, Maiah, it's a pleasure to connect with you again.
Thanks, absolutely.
Well, thank you both for being here today. Really excited to talk about this. I was a fellow at ASHP last year, and so I kind of got to see what it's like behind the scenes in terms of ASHP Midyear and all the preparation that goes into it. But I also, as a student, saw what it was like to prepare as well. So a common question I get from students, and that I also had during my P4 year, was, do I need to go to ASHP Midyear if I want to pursue pharmacy residency?
I think that's a great question, Marissa. And I think with the times that have changed, of course, with the pandemic, I think that has also altered and made that question even a better question now. I would say that first and foremost, I highly recommend it. And I highly recommend it because this isn't a great opportunity for you to be a part of something that's going to help you push you forward for your next career. Obviously, there are a lot of different programs at Midyear, and because Midyear is the biggest, pharmacy conference, double check me on that. I believe that's true, but Midyear is the biggest pharmacy conference in the world, right? So it's thousands upon thousands of people, and this is a really great opportunity, not only for you to pursue residency, but for you to be able to connect with many peers that can help you, but also colleagues that can help you, and you can help each other as well as you go forward. And I would say for programs, even if all of your favorite programs are not there, I think it's a great chance for you to meet different programs, because what we see is that you can do a lot of virtual showcases, and we'll talk about more about that, but it's a great way to meet a program in person, because a lot of times I tell my protege, you want to get the vibe from these programs. And I think one of those great ways is to meet them in person and being able to ask those questions that you really want answered. So I highly recommend it, but do you need to go, right? That's really the question. And I would say that there have been multiple people that have matched with residency programs and have not gone to Midyear. If you absolutely cannot go because of financial reasons, maybe school, things of that nature, then I wholeheartedly understand. I think a lot of people understand as well, especially post-pandemic. So for those who are not going to Midyear, please do your best in being intentional. Even if you're going to Midyear, please be intentional about going to these virtual showcases, virtual open houses, informational sessions, and even some of the ones that may be localized at your school. Like, try to do your best to learn about these different programs, and even reaching out to some of the residents as well as directors to get more information. So all in all, I don't think Midyear is a requirement, but I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Although it isn't a requirement, I can personally speak from experience with this. I've had a little mixture of both Midyear experiences, from the virtual setting the past 2 years as a fourth year student, and as a PGY1 resident. But fortunately, before that, I did get to attend the last in-person mid-year as a third-year student. And I will say it was very different and opened my eyes to so many different things, really getting to interact with the programs in person. Like Chandler had just mentioned, you really get a good vibe and you get a good perception of how the program is, how the residents and the preceptors interact with each other, how the RPDs and the preceptors and the residents interact with one another. But I would say, given that experience, I would more so highly recommend it for the fourth year students if you're, looking into residency programs. But if you're like a first through third year student, not necessarily a requirement to go, given especially the monetary costs and the different travel things that go into mid-year that way. But if you are a fourth year student, would highly recommend, especially if you get a chance to present a research poster. Having presented a poster in person, that experience is definitely one of a kind, and another way that you can network with people, exchange business cards with people outside of the residency showcase. So those are really some one of a kind of experiences that I would recommend you going to the mid-year meeting in person for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I feel like sometimes as a P2 or a P3, sometimes even P1s, they want to go and they're like, should I go? And it's like, no, you obviously don't have to go. Like P4s get the most, I think, benefit out of that residency showcase. But if they have the opportunity to go ahead of time and like present a poster or do something, like it's kind of like practice. It's like, okay, now you get to see it and like, you know what to expect. And then when it comes your fourth year, you're like, okay, I know exactly how to navigate and everything. So if anything, I think it would help prepare the younger students before their fourth year if they really want to go and they can afford to go. So excellent advice. I agree with everything you both said. And in terms of like expectations for the mid-year, what can you expect if you've never gone before? You don't really know, you don't have like a frame of reference. Do you have any like recommendations as like what they can expect when they go? I think it was the last in-person one was also in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, and that's where it's going to be this year.
Yes, I think it was in Vegas. And I will say that I think half the battle, or maybe even 60% of the battle for mid-year is preparation. It is truly how you map out your plan. And that's going back to being intentional. And I think that what's going to be very important is to understand that we talked about how, the showcases are important. So with the showcases, there are three different showcases that ASHP hosts during mid-year clinical meeting. So it's going to start off Monday afternoon from like 1 to 4, and then going into Tuesday in the morning, 8 to 11, and then afternoon session 1 to 4. For you, P4s, and even, potentially some P3s who are definitely trying to get that practice, like Marissa mentioned, it's important for, I would say, to map out where your programs are. So you need to understand if you're having certain programs at the top of your list, in the middle of the list, well, you want to know where they're at, because I think what helped me is I had a map, and ASHP has this on their website, a map of where all the booths are, the booth numbers, and being able to associate with that with the programs and highlighting them, across the board. You may even have time to get a chance to meet programs that you haven't even had on your list, which is a great opportunity because it's 3 hours. I would say that for me, I have a special tip, and that when I was during the showcase, it's really for me it was intimidating because so many people would be at the doors right when it starts, and it's like a stampede of people going in. It's just a big rush. And what I did during that first 5 minutes, I just let everyone go in, and I would take that 5 to 10 minutes to collect myself, to meditate, to pray, just so that and what I'm praying for is for me to, showcase by my best self so that I can see the best in each program. And that was allowed me to, not necessarily go in with being flustered and trying to be more collected. So that's one tip that I did during the showcase. But also another tip is that when I was going to different programs that were mapped out on my list, I would also make sure that I didn't spend too much time at one program to give myself, more time. And when I mapped those places out, I also mapped out my questions as well. You always will hear from different people, please don't ask website questions. Don't ask pamphlet questions. You want to be able to ask questions to really dig into what these programs, can mean to you and how you can, truly impact them. You maybe want to ask about professional development, work-life balance, wellness, right, Marissa? You want to ask about all these different things that can, really, help you decide where you want to go, and getting that vibe, getting that perception, like Maiah said. But that's only, I think showcases, I think, some of the most important parts of Midyear, and I'll let Maiah talk about some other things as well as her perspective on those things.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with all of those sentiments about mid-year, especially the fact of taking a break, taking time for yourself, because the first thing that comes to mind when I think of mid-year is that it is a lot of people. Probably will be the largest amount of people that you've ever been around before. Everyone is dressed business casual. Everyone is pursuing the same goal. You're with very much like-minded people, so it can be intimidating. So it's so important to take those breaks, remember who you are, and showcasing your best self as you go into these avenues, whether that's the residency program showcase, whether that's presenting a research poster, or even CE sessions. And just remembering that about yourself is very important to keep throughout. But for some of the other elements of mid-year, we mentioned, our Chandler mentioned the residency program showcase. As I previously mentioned before, we also have the poster sessions. So if you collaborated with a preceptor or a faculty member on projects, there are numerous poster sessions. I can't even name how many there are, but those go throughout the day, where you can potentially connect with other students. And this is also maybe a good time to connect with residents of programs that you're interested in, asking them about their research. And of course, not utilizing that entire time to talk about the program, but using that time to learn about their interests and connect with them, and kind of get another perspective of the research aspect of the programs that you're looking at. So I'd highly recommend attending research poster sessions that are for residents, and then even some students, so you can get to know people and really network in that aspect. And then in addition, there are also continuing education, or CE sessions. So those are mainly for licensed pharmacists, but they're also for students, residents, all attendees of the mid-year meeting, to really learn about some of the newest updates in pharmacy, some of the technologies and things that are emerging in the world of pharmacy. And then there are also specific student programming sessions, which I attended when I was at P3, that I thought were very helpful in preparing myself for residency, even though it wasn't at that crucial point of being a P4 yet. But there were multiple sessions. I remember there was one about preparing for the match, or what happens if I don't match. Where do I go from there? What about forecast? What is forecast? How do those things work? And a lot of those sessions were extremely beneficial to go to as a student. And I felt so much more prepared looking at programs early on after attending some of those sessions. So also gives you another opportunity to get to know other students, get to know how they're researching programs, and really getting to collaborate in those aspects. So I really enjoyed the student programming sessions as well.
I just want to add one thing, because I love what Maiah mentioned. She got my mind rolling, and I also want to tell everyone that is watching, mid-year is also an opportunity to have fun as well. And there are a lot of different, receptions. And I will say that from, different pharmacy schools, different states have their own receptions. I know Texas, TSHP usually have their own reception. So that's another opportunity to, once again, connect with, different programs, connect with, different students as well that have like minds and ideals. And also, ASHP hosts, different social events as well. So those are opportunities, once again, it's going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of preparation, but it's also an opportunity for you to, see what else pharmacy is about.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot. There's a lot to experience, and it's a lot of fun too. So hopefully people take advantage of it when they get there. I guess to touch a little bit on the residency showcase, since we started talking about that, what should you do throughout the residency showcase? Like, I guess it is a blocked period of time. So, does it take the whole time to see all of like the programs you want to see? Or if you have extra time on your hands, like what would you do with your time throughout the residency showcase to like maximize your time there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Marissa. I think that you can really, especially if it's like a program that you're really vibing with or that you really like, you can get lost in time and speaking with so many different people. And especially if it's one of those programs that has multiple different residents and multiple different preceptors and directors there, you can really, lose track of time. And that's one thing I didn't want to do when I was a resident. So I think that it's important to, stay aware of your surroundings, keeping track of your time at each poster. I was telling myself before preparation and mapping things out, I would tell myself, don't spend, more than 20 to 30 minutes at each place. Because like once you want to be able to give other programs that same time, you're gonna give yourself time with those other programs to see what it's about, because it can, time moves. As we all know, time moves really fast. And when you're talking and you're talking a lot, it can definitely move. So one thing I would say is, like I said, keeping your paperwork, keeping whatever your planner, keeping it handy so that you know that, okay, I'm 30 minutes here. Let me go ahead and ask this final question and then move on to the next place. And when you're mapping these things out, try to be strategic. You don't want to go from one side of the room to the whole entire side of the room. Think about it. It is ASHP Midyear. It's a huge room. So you want to be able to, be strategic in where you're going as well, because you can lose time moving around too. So I just want, everyone to understand, like, once again, preparation is very important. So it's going to help you move around. So when you're going through showcases, keep in mind your time, but also when you're at these different programs, being able to get a really good perception of the program from the residents, as well as, being the opportunity to ask some questions from preceptors and directors. But I think the residents are really going to be able to give you a lot of solid information as you go along. So I think that's really important, asking those really good questions that we talked about, that's important to you. And once again, being mindful of your surroundings and your time, and also being respectful of other students as well. You're going to be with a group of students, and you don't want to necessarily be hogging all of their questions, or just being respectful, because programs look at that as well, how you're able to interact and work with other people.
Yeah, that's a great point. I also wanted to ask a follow-up question, because I haven't been to an in-person conference for midyear, but I did attend 2 virtual conferences. And for the virtual conferences, not all of the programs were there for each session. Is it like that in person as well? Like, say you want to go to the VA, like, are they only there on Monday, or are they going to be there Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, for example?
Yeah, I can definitely take that one. So with programs, each specific program just has one session that they'll go to. So say our program, like with Baker VA, will be at, say, a Monday session. They will only be at that Monday session from the 1 to 4 p.m. And they will not revisit the other 2 Tuesday sessions. So really just to reemphasize what Chandler was saying in being strategic and mapping out which programs you would like to visit, how long you'd like to visit with each program, because you really only get that one chance, at least in the Residency Showcase, to talk to them, but that doesn't necessarily mean you won't have a chance to connect with them another time, whether that's through interviewing with Personal Placement Service or PPS, talking to the residents at their poster sessions, but as specifically for the Residency Showcase, that program will only be there for that one session. And then I was also thinking of some other things, of how to spend your time with the Residency Showcase. And I just want to reemphasize taking breaks also. So I remember as a P3, they had like little tables and things kind of spread away from the crowd a bit throughout the Residency Showcase. And I would see students kind of sitting there, making notes, talking to other students, and kind of going over different things about different programs. I'd highly emphasize that. If you need to take a look, there are maps like throughout the Residency Showcase. You can take a look. If you get a little bit mixed up of where you're at the time, just recommend taking a look at that to make sure that you know where you're going, and just to re-emphasize of being respectful of other students, because a lot of your time will also be spent waiting. So there's some programs that are very, very popular will have lines and lines of students. So important to be respectful, and of course wait your turn in, but if it's taking up a little bit too much of your time, recommend going to another program. Maybe that's close by, and then talking with that program, giving your 20 or 30 minutes, and then coming back just to make sure you're utilizing your time effectively.
I think you made some really good points. It's really important to take care of yourself, make sure you're hydrated and that you're calm as much as possible. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit stressful. I think ASHP does a really good job of like well-being and that type of thing. So being like sensitive to how you're feeling in the moment, because you don't want to be super flustered and like, just excited. So that's definitely some really good points that you guys both hit on. And then you also mentioned personal placement services, also known as PPS. Can you talk a little bit about like what that is? Is that something that you should be attending if you're going to the in-person midyear?
Dr. Hardin, you can go ahead and start with that one.
Sure. So PPS, or personal placement service, and the best way to describe it is really like a mini interview, quote unquote. And this is a chance for you to have a 30-minute interview session with a program of your choice. However, I do want to have a disclaimer that not every program participates in PPS. Mainly, this is targeted toward current PGY1 residents that are pursuing a PGY2 residency and would like to specialize. Certain PGY2 programs offer like these little 30-minute interviews, really to get to know the candidate and the candidate to get to know the program before the actual residency interview in the spring starts. Another portion of PPS is really focused on PGY2 candidates that are looking for jobs as clinical pharmacists. And so that's really where the focus of PPS is. But there are some PGY1 programs that participate in PPS. I've noted some of the larger programs throughout the country usually participate in those. And they offer this, again, it's just a way to get to know the program to get to know you. And then some programs sometimes use this as a screening interview prior to the larger spring interviews for the residency program. So it is an extra additional fee for students. I want to say it's about $95 for students. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is an additional fee in addition to your registration fee. So that is something to consider moving forward if you've already paid your fee and how things are looking for you financially. But I would recommend participating in PPS if there are programs that you're very interested in and you would really like to get to know the program a little bit early on, get to meet some of the program leadership. I would highly recommend it for those candidates that are looking for that a little bit more personal touch and screening beforehand.
Love it. I agree, Maiah, for sure. And I think that once I said that, mid-year for sure, that I highly recommend it, but it's not necessarily a requirement for you to get a residency. I would say the same thing about PPS, is that I recommend it if, with those disclaimers that Maiah mentioned, that you have some programs that even if you're maybe remotely interested in, to take a chance. Because to add on to what Maiah said, I think I also looked at it as additional practice as well. We've been doing, mock interviews. We do different types of case prep. But this is an opportunity for you to get right in front of these programs and practice presenting yourself to these people. And when I say practice, I'm saying that this is opportunities that you're going to be practicing beforehand. So you're going to come ready, of course, but at the same time, this is going to get you more comfortable talking to programs, get you more comfortable with your tell me about your stars, with your CART methods, with your different types of situational questions. This is another way to really hone your skills. Then, and again, being able to learn more about a program that you may potentially be interested in. When I did PPS a few years ago, not too long ago, when I did PPS, I found one program because I was very interested in VAs, obviously, and there was one VA that I interviewed with, and I was not thinking necessarily about applying there, but after the interview, I thought it was very interesting, and I went ahead and applied and actually did an on-site interview later on, and that was a great experience. Even though I didn't match there, I feel like I was able to connect with those people and learn a lot from them. So once again, this whole process is a process, and you definitely are going to be challenged by it, but also want you to enjoy it. And I think midyear is a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. And touching on PPS, I know there are opportunities, even if you're looking for a job or position, like just straight out of pharmacy school. I know there's that opportunity as well. And they also have fellowships on there who they'll do like screenings, kind of like you were mentioning, Maiah. And, there's a lot of opportunity in terms of, everything that is there. And I was looking for the pricing when you were talking. It looked like it was about $95 for like the early bird. And now it's gone up a little bit since then. So definitely not required, but definitely something to take advantage if that's something you're interested in. So throughout this conversation, we've also talked about some of the other things like the educational sessions, the networking opportunities, all those really fun things. I'd love to hear like, what was your favorite thing outside of like Residency Showcase that you experienced when you were at Midyear?
That's a great question. Now you got me thinking. I'm gonna say two things, and one of them everyone may be mad at, but hopefully it happens again in the future. But one of my favorite opportunities was when I was a P4, was going to the Texas TSHP reception. I think it was really great because at the time, Mikey DeBakey, of course, was my #1 program, and I was just so motivated and so determined to showcase, how I could be an asset, to the program and to the institution, to where I knew they were going to be at the TSHP reception. And at the time, I was able to see, it was so great because I was able to see the residents and the RPD interact with themselves in a more relaxed manner, in a more chill setting, I would say, for them. And that was great to see because that also gives you a lot of insight on what these programs were. And like I say, it was fun for me because it was really good for me to not feel intimidated, to feel like, oh, these are people, these are human. And I tell people as an RPD, being on the other side, we are people too. I understand, being intimidated and things of that nature, but, we've been through these things and we understand, what you're going through. So that's just something to note. And then my other favorite experience was we had Midyear in Orlando. And I remember ASHP like bought out Universal Studios for like 4 hours for the big social event. So it was with the Harry Potter world. I mean, it was great to be able to have that experience. And I was like, man, this is a cool perk to be. My family was jealous, So just being able to do that, that was amazing. So it was like 8 to 12 or 6 to 10, something like that. But we were so excited to do that, and we were grateful for ASHP to do that. And lastly, I would say the keynote speakers, but I don't want to say any more from that. But go ahead, Maiah.
That was honestly going to be one of my answers. It was the keynote speaker. So the last time, the last time that they had ASHP Midyear in Vegas, they had Condoleezza Rice. That was the keynote speaker, and it was amazing. Just getting to, she's always been someone I've looked up to kind of throughout life. So it was really amazing to get to see her in person. She's very inspirational and motivating us, to pursue our careers and go after our dreams. So that definitely tops the list for me. I also, another part that I really liked, at the time, I was a member of the ASHP Pharmacy Student Forum Advisory Groups, and we had meetings there where we had in-person meetings where we would get to brainstorm and meet all of the people that we were working on projects for ASHP with as a student. So it was really nice to get to meet people from all over the country that were in the same spot as I was. We were getting to talk about what we're planning for Showcase and presenting posters. So it was really nice to get to see all the people that I'd worked with all throughout that point. So those are definitely my top two. I could think of more, but I'll limit it to those top two.
And the keynote speaker this year is Michael Strahan, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if you don't know him, he's a legend. So tune in.
It'll be exciting. Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for all this information. I think it was super helpful, something I wish I would have known going into the ASHP Midyear as a P4. So everyone, thank you for joining us today, and stay tuned for our next part in the series.